Keith Lee is getting a WWE mega push. He truly is unlimited or limitless. Limitless? Sounds like a phone carrier tagline, to be honest. I'm Mr. Davis, and I am rejoined by my foe, my eternal arch nemesis from this point forward, lukewarm Luke Owen.
Hello, Mr. Davis. For if you didn't catch up on the streams yesterday, this guy got his job back. Can I get a yes, please? Give me a yes, please. I'm back up until All Out 2, and I'm going to officially fully get my job back, and we're going to determine the inaugural Jam That Champion.
Yeah, well, let's not count your chickens just yet. This is just a contractual nicety for the build-in to All Out 2. I want to get those viewers up. I'm going to exploit this for the analytics, mate. I'm not going to do it for you to get your job back. Right. Let's get into the...
Yes, please.
No, stop giving them yes, pleases. Stop being so polite. It's a lame, it's a lame catchphrase. Let's get into what you really want, which is what I know you want. That is Keith Lee getting a mega push at last night's Payback. Overall, an okay show. I would say an above average show.
I thought it was a really solid pay-per-view. Overall, a very solid. I mean, we could talk about the main event, which I was not massively into, but I thought overall, what a solid show.
I've been thinking about this because I think for SummerSlam, which went 3 hours, I was like, you know what? That was a 4 out of 5 show. They gave us clean finishes. They had a killer angle at the end of it with Roman Reigns returning, and it was only 3 hours. A merciful 3 hours. And now here I'm like, all the matches were okay. A couple were really good. And it was only 2.5 hours. And I thought, is this my criteria for enjoying a WWE show? That it's not over long. It doesn't outstay its welcome. And the wrestling's okay.
Yeah, well, do you know what? I think because we didn't get a lot of that in 2019. You know, think back to the lows of Hell in a Cell and sort of like the real down point of last year. And I think that now we're just getting solid wrestling and solid wrestling shows. 2 weeks of, solid wrestling shows. Hey, maybe we can't really complain about that.
Well, now the bare minimum has been satisfied. It's a 5 out of 5. And a part of the big reason for the enjoyment of this show is Keith Lee beating Randy Orton clean. It was the shortest match on the pay-per-view. It only went about 6.5 minutes, really. Keith Lee still has the vest, which is, it's unflattering on him. I don't think it's a good look. He's still got that crappy music, which we were told was going to be changed by the time the pay-per-view came around. I'm just assuming they weren't able to come up with something better in that time because there was only a week. There's loads of sort of backstage shenanigans here with WWE not liking the music rights deal that CFO $sign had made for all those great NXT themes for. Keith Lee's was one of them, so they just pushed it to one side. But he did have those sexy tight shorts back on.
Absolutely, the bicycle shorts were back again. So that was a big improvement. But the music thing, it's really funny to listen to because it's the start of the NXT one. Lee bask in his glory, for he is limitless, and then it just fades out. And then a new song just fades in. It is the most minimal effort was put into making that theme song.
That's what I thought DJing was as a 13-year-old. Oh yeah, I'm gonna remix this song. Man in the volume up button. Oh yeah.
Yep.
Gonna bring it down. Now it's quiet. Now it's quiet. Now it's loud.
Now it's
yeah,
loud
for when it drops. So yeah, that is all, of course, not ideal. But ultimately, as we said on Monday, and I hate to say I was right, just like I was right about Roman Reigns turning heel, will you give me a yes, please, for that?
No, we will not give you a yes, please, for that.
Keith Lee is getting a massive push here, where it's not about all of these little changes that they've made to his character, which aren't great, I agree, but ultimately they're superficial, they're cosmetic, because Get those comments off the screen. What really matters is the booking and presentation of where he is on the card, and having his debut pay-per-view match beat Randy Orton. And this isn't like Randy Orton from a couple of years ago. This is the top heel in the company, arguably the top star in the company in terms of mainstream recognition of all the other people on their roster right now. He beat him in 6.5 minutes without one iota of Drew McIntyre interference, which was what we were all speculating going in.
I think had WWE brought Keith Lee up on Monday and had him have that in-ring segment with Randy Orton, and where he was like, I want to challenge you to a match, and Randy says no, and then later in that episode it was announced they're going to have a match at Payback, and then we fast forward to Payback and Keith Lee beats him in his debut singles pay-per-view match, beating Randy Orton in 6.5 minutes. There would not have been all of the chat last week that he was quote unquote buried, that they've botched him. There would have been those that would have complained that the music sucks and they've made him wear a vest, which is true enough. But I also think a big part of what people's problem is that he had that match with Randy Orton that only went a handful of minutes, and it ended in a DQ finish, which Keith Lee lost. I think that if they'd have just sort of not done that Raw match and just done this match here, I don't think the chat would have been the same.
Yeah, I agree. You would have gone right into. I think a lot of the debate would still be around the music and the costume change.
Yeah.
But yeah, you would. Yeah, because coming out of that, no one was really talking about how Drew McIntyre chased off Randy Orton, and it was a DQ finish at the end. That was some of the chatter, sure, but I would say 80% of the vitriol was definitely aimed at the music change and the tights and the vest. But yeah, this match itself was just it wasn't a crazy good match. It was a Randy Orton main roster style match, which means he's going to get you in a headlock. He's going to try and grind you down and slow down the pace. But it was only 6 minutes. That's a big plus, because then you can tell a story around, it's not they're not trying to put him in a 15-minute match right off the gate, because that's not where his strengths are. His strengths are being incredibly athletic for his size and for cool facial expressions and no cells of chops, which is what he did here. And Randy Orton, to his credit, because I don't see that many people saying, man, Randy, well done Randy here, because he's such a fun figure to poke criticism at. He made Keith Lee look like $1 million here.
Yeah, and it's weird as well that this was basically the same match that they had on Raw, which was Randy bumps around like a madman for Keith Lee, and the commentary are putting over Keith absolutely massively. The difference here is that it had an actual finish, and the new guy won in like such convincing, clean fashion. Like I on my live stream last night, I was like, well, man, Randy Orton's going for the RKO here. It can't be the end of the match. It feels like they're, only really just sort of getting going into like the second gear of this match. And then literally from out of nowhere, Keith Lee blocks the RKO, hits the Spirit Bomb, and pins him. 1, 2, 3. And that was it. Keith Lee, the NXT caller beat the top heel in the company in their first pay-per-view singles match, clean as a sheet. We've been so conditioned to not expect this sort of thing to happen. You'll never see it coming. I didn't see this coming, and I was beyond thrilled. Credits to WWE. They have seen something in someone. At long last, they've seen something in an NXT call-up, and they're pushing them to the moon.
Well, would you say Keith Lee is the physically biggest NXT call-up they've ever had? Is that what's... Drew, I'm not counting Drew. I'm not saying he's an NXT call-up. I'm saying he's a WWE return.
Okay, yeah, you're absolutely fair. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, maybe he is.
That's where I think that's the secret here. Just be bigger, tiny vanilla midgets.
Adam Cole's screwed. I think he's shorter than me.
So interestingly, it isn't just us saying there's a mega push. It's not just everyone watching the show really and seeing what's being presented on the product. It's also those goddamn dirt sheet backstage reports, because Alex McCarthy of TalkSport, very reliable, has reported today that one of the WWE sources of his has reached out and said Vince McMahon asked Orton personally to make Lee a star in their Payback match last night. And that the quote here is, imagine how high Vince has to be on someone to have Randy Orton put them over clean as a whistle. Orton, doing the best work of his career, wants to help create that next generation of stars. He gets it.
I'm reminded of, do you remember the second Punk podcast that he did with Cabana, like the follow-up one to that podcast that he did, where he told a story about how Punk was put into a 3-on-1 situation that he was going to win, but the directive from Vince McMahon was make that guy look like an absolute star. And that guy that he was referring to was Roman Reigns. Vince McMahon is not often telling people, make that guy look like a star, even if you're gonna, like, even in a losing effort, make them look like a star. So not only was he told to make him look like a star, he was made to go out there, make him look like a star, and lose to them. That to me suggests that Vince is ludicrously high on Keith Lee at the moment.
And we've got to separate this from because how many, it's become a running joke in the office in 2020 that Vince McMahon is high on Backstage Raw star. Vince McMahon high on new WWE star. WWE officials. Yeah, WWE Rich Holland, I've heard. It's just nonsense at this point. Yeah. So this one feels different because they're getting undercard matches on Raw, tagging with Andrade maybe, and drawing with the Viking Raiders. This is something quite different. Here's just a little bit more of McCarthy's report. The source said McMahon wants to push Lee to the moon, and he thought Orton was the perfect foil for him to do that right now. It seems Orton was only happy to go along with the boss's orders.
Wow.
If only WrestleTalk workers were that loyal. So yeah, it's there is like it's a consequence, and they book themselves into a corner here, and that is Orton's push and momentum off of this. I don't think he's lost as much as Keith Lee has gained. So net, this is a big positive. But Orton was built as the most threatening guy in the company. Edge, Christian, Big Show, Ric Flair. So many resources were put into positioning Orton as the top heel, and then some. And now he's lost 2 pay-per-view matches in the space of a week. He needs something big now to reset that character back.
I mean, I would say, bearing in mind that this is WWE, and this may sound like I'm being very disparaging of the company, but I don't quite intend it to be that way. But he is still part of that WWE Championship picture. He is still going to walk into a championship match. So, like, this loss is not going to hurt him one iota. He's still feuding with the WWE Champion. He sent the WWE Champion to a local medical facility on Monday. So they're still feuding over the title. And because wins and losses don't matter, it's not going to halt any momentum that he's currently got in the eyes of like the story that they're telling. It's just, I mean, we said this about Seth Rollins at WrestleMania. Like, Seth Rollins lost to Kevin Owens twice at WrestleMania, and then the very next pay-per-view was challenging for the top title in the company.
Yeah, WWE have their guys.
Yeah,
and they always stay at the top. Everyone else just kind of gets pulled under by the current.
Exactly.
Let's see what you guys think in the super chats. Shower Lurker says Keith getting punted and written off TV tonight. Oh, ye of little faith. Trust in McMahon's creative vision. Blake, could you see Keith joining New Day at some point with his Dragon Ball Z inspired attire? People love it when I say Z in the English way. WWE does have a tendency to put people of color in factions together.
No, absolutely not.
If anything, he'll be in the United States title picture. That's their new thing, not to put everyone in a faction, just put them all in one division. Yes, that is a case. And WWE are almost acknowledging that, I think, by replaying that Biggie Miz Talking Smack segment over and over again. They played it twice on last night's episode. I genuinely believe that's building to a Miz Biggie feud with sort of some Kofi racial context, which would be very interesting to see play out if they can handle it sensitively enough. But putting Keith Lee in this position right now doesn't it feel like a breath of fresh air?
Oh, massively so, because this is what we've been asking for NXT call-ups for the last couple of years. Of just like, I mean, I did a list a few years back of like, top 10, the NXT call-ups rated from worst to not quite as bad. And it really was a case of just like, this was awful. This wasn't quite as awful. This was awful, but erring on the side of good. But this is genuinely an NXT call-up where they put him straight into the main event picture and legit trying to make a star out of someone.
I'm not so much as an NXT call-up. I was more referring to an attempt to create some racial diversity in the top of WWE.
Yeah, no, and absolutely, you're on that money. But Ollie, this is why he's big, and I think that's where WWE have been going wrong all this time. They probably wanted to push some racial diversity into their main event picture, but there's not any big lads. So, and you can't go in there unless you're a big lad.
It's not racism, folks. It's muscleism. You just want to be big enough. Hottie Punk says, what do you think of a storyline where Randy can only beat older guys and not the new ones, and it gets into his head? This is because he used to kill legends. Now he's the legend getting killed. I've been pitching for that kind of storyline for a while, where he goes after the younger guys because he has now become it's I Am Legend, right? He's now become the thing that he hated at the start of his career, and now he becomes sort of psychotically obsessed with protecting that position.
Yeah, he goes from the legend killer to the rookie killer.
Let's do a few on Roman's title win, and then we'll get into the full play-by-play of the show. Charlie Davis, if the Fiend really does change people into their true selves, I wonder if that will be the story they use to change Roman back into a babyface.
Now, can I ask a question on this one? Is the Fiend changing people into their true selves an actual character thing, or is it just something that the internet has made up and attached to the Fiend, and now everyone thinks, like, there was that thing, it was like, if you feud with the Fiend, you have to turn heel directly afterwards, which has not been the case, because Goldberg didn't, and quite a few people haven't either. Is that actually a character of the Fiend, or is it just something that the internet wrestling community has made up?
I think we all love the Fiend so much and the associated lore that we will scramble to close these logic loopholes that WWE keep creating for themselves. Liv Morgan forever as Sister Abigail. It's the Sisters Abigail. It's a tag team. Josh Armstrong, good day from Australia. Good day. Was this the worst use of the ring-breaking suplex spot? Just didn't seem logical considering the weight of the two compared to Big Show and Lesnar. Hashtag Team Luke.
Strowman's a big boy. He's a big, beefy boy. Of course he's going to break the ring. And this is the second time it's happened to him, right? Because he broke it with Big Show as well.
It's going to give him some sort of, some hang-ups, some mental insecurities. I know what you mean. As soon as Strowman got up there, I see, you can go back and watch the live reactions. Watch ours, not Luke's. I said, we're getting a ring break spot. Because it was just the way it was all playing out. And they didn't really get up to the top rope either. It was more of a second rope hop up than a proper full on top rope superplex. And yes, it felt a bit shocky for shock's reason as a way for Roman to come in. But with that said, Charles Robinson took a hell of a bump over the ropes, and I would not trade anything to stop that from happening.
I was going to say, I think you put it perfectly in your review when he said he glitched out of the ring. Like, he went into this animation to fall out of the ring. It was incredible.
It's a shame you can't see my whole attire here because it's hot, and I foolishly committed to wearing a jacket now on all the videos. So I've rolled them up. This is a great 80s look. I feel like a member of Spandau Ballet near the end. So let's get on. Get in all of your super chats. We'll get to every single one of them by the end of this stream. And mark it in your calendars, folks. This comes to an end at All Out 2 this Saturday. Me and Luke. Predictions. If Luke wins, he gets his job back. If I win, Mr. Davis, not only does Luke stay fired, this is just a nicety that he's here right now. Not only do I get Wrestle Luke back, and I'm going to rename it something better, it will also crown the inaugural, which means first, Jam That Champion. The Jam That Championship belt will be around my shoulder, around my waist, not you, Luke.
Well, we will certainly see it all out when we get rowdy.
Stop doing that. It's annoying.
Get rowdy, folks. Get rowdy. Give me a yes, please.
You are just a catchphrase shill, aren't you? Ollie knows what you want. Join the Ollie Authority. Do you like that, by the way? The Ollie Authority.
Just rolled off the tongue. It's
like
nice.
Ollie Authority. I watched Don't Get Rowdy. Stop getting rowdy in the chat. Calm down. Just as an unrelated thing, my partner has been watching. It's Misguided. We didn't get to do a podcast thing today, so we're just having general chit chat now. You know the lady clothes brand Misguided.
Oh yes, yeah. There's that one in Manchester.
Yes.
Ah.
And there's a TV series on it, and the lead person they follow is one of the creative directors, and she's called Treasure, and she's a character, and her thing is when she's out on the town, she just likes to lick people.
Oh, that's not a good thing in this pandemic era time, is it?
No,
licking
aged
strangers.
poorly, and she just goes up to people and she's like, "Oh, missed you, way," and just licks their face.
She a bushwhacker?
It genuinely upset me. I got a right strop for like half an hour. What's she doing? It's just rude. That person doesn't know her well enough. Anyway,
if someone, a stranger, not even like now it would obviously be much worse, but 5 years ago, if someone had just licked me in the street, I would have think, oh, what a character that is. What a wacky personality.
Well, it's not random people. I think that's the problem. It's people on the peripheral of her professional life. I've worked with this person a few times on a photo shoot. They're getting a lick when we're all next out. It's not endearing. It's gross. But I guess it's a wrestling thing as well. Good old lick.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what else is normal in wrestling?
Getting
rowdy. Get rowdy.
Don't get rowdy. Okay, so let's get into the full play-by-play review of SummerSlam. Stop this rowdiness. We have Iconics versus the Riot Squad to kick off the pre-show, which was, I think it's a microcosm of the entire pay-per-view in that I liked it because it wasn't crap, but it still was a bit crap.
Oh, do you know what? Like, this is, I think Sean pointed out that this was like the 9th match that they've had as part of their feud, sort of like in various different combinations. 9 matches in this feud, which is an insane amount of matches. And the story has been bobbins because it's been told completely out of order. Like, they're best friends. Like, they form the team. The very next week, they're showing some dissension. Then the next week, they're fine. Then the next week, they're showing some... They cannot tell this story right. And that happened again here in this match because the Riot Squad came out in matching gear. They did an entrance together and were the best of friends. What was the first spot of this match? Ruby Riott blind tags herself in and then refuses to tag out. I'm like, you're a team now. You literally just did your entrance together. Why are you now showing dissension after just literally 30 seconds ago you were on the same page? With that said, this was easily the best match of this feud so far because it didn't go 90 seconds. And it was actually one of the better matches of the night. I thought it was really good.
Oh, I wouldn't say, again, I think that might just be comparatively to the rest of the feud. It went 9 minutes. There was a horrible sequence just before the finish where Liv Morgan screwed up a bunch of things, fell over, I think dropped Peyton Royce. Nasty landing. I hope Royce is okay. She just took this shoulder bump off a double stomp in the corner, which looked horrid. But then, yeah, this would be a cool little story because Liv's acting, how she was showing conflict. No, I'm done with this. She walks away, but then, oh no, I do love Ruby. And she runs in, and then the Riot Squad or Living Riot, I think they're calling themselves now, Liv N Riot, like rock and roll. That's what they called themselves in the post-match promo to the pre-show panel. Post-match promo to the post-match promo to the pre-show panel.
That was impressive, mate.
Yeah, but yeah, ultimately, I thought it was rather sloppily worked at times. In the larger scope of the story, it was infuriating because, like you said, they've worked this out 6 weeks ago, and they just keep on doing the same thing. But hopefully that's it now. Hopefully they are a team and they can do something like challenge for the tag team titles.
No, dude, they're having a rematch on Raw tonight.
Oh, no. If it's Iconics versus Riot Squad again.
Or in some sort of form of that. Because, I'm with you on this one. This has got to be the end of the feud, right? Like, this feud is now over. They can't have a 10th match in this feud. It's done now. But I do have this, there's this sense of dread in the pit of my stomach that I'm going to load up Raw tomorrow to watch. And it's going to be coming up later in the show. It's a payback rematch of Liv and Riot versus the Iconics.
The whole point of this show, the whole point of having a pay-per-view called Payback a week after the big SummerSlam show is surely to end feuds. I think we got it here, but my God, did we not get that for 2 other matches on the card? Starting with the main show opener, Bobby Lashley versus Apollo Crews. Technically, it's their first match after that classic arm wrestling encounter on Raw for the United States title. They had a pretty good 10-minute plus opener. I really enjoyed Bobby Lashley's no-sell off a German suplex.
Oh, it was wicked.
They worked really well together. I like this match. I would like to see more of them together, but Bobby won in the end, got that master lock in, full Nelson, and Apollo tapped pretty quickly, but then Crews jumped the Hurt Business afterwards, implying that this is going to carry on.
Oh yeah, this feud is very much continuing because Crews needs to get his championship back now that he's just lost to Bobby Lashley. But I think Bobble's taking the title is completely the right move at this point. It felt like the MVP stuff was building to this point so that Lashley could get the belt. Totally fine with that. I think it's good to add some credibility to the Hurt Business, who have really been they lose all the time unless it's Raw Underground, and really that doesn't matter a jot. So because they're dominating Raw Underground and then just lose on Raw the next week. So it doesn't really help them in any capacity.
There was a shot later on where they were walking backstage and kind of cutting a promo as they walked off. They look awesome in their suits together, calling themselves the CEOs. I thought, are they going to Raw Underground now? We should probably talk about this. Raw Underground does not feature in the pay-per-view world, which, I'm like, okay, I can kind of get that because it's a Raw thing. This is a different Thunderdome, right? Retribution did not feature on SummerSlam, did not feature at all on Payback, despite WWE seemingly over-teasing their involvement a few times. First off, by calling the title of the pay-per-view Payback, which means Retribution, the angle on Monday night, I don't know. Do they just not like pay-per-views?
Well, apparently, some people have connected some dots that Retribution have not shown up on the 3 shows that Roman has been a part of, which is SummerSlam, because they weren't on SmackDown either, and then they weren't at Payback. So I think some people are connecting the dots that they're not attacking the shows that Roman is a part of, maybe because Roman is the leader of that group. I'll be honest, I really hope he isn't, because that does not suit. Those 2 things do not fit together. My favorite thing I've heard now is this Wade Barrett is going to lead a new Nexus, and that is about the only thing with some NXT call-ups that I could kind of get behind. But it's fun for us to connect these dots. But for me, the real reason why Retribution were not on Payback, SummerSlam, or SmackDown is because they're making it up as they go along and they don't know where they're heading to next. So they were like, well, we haven't got an idea for the show. We'll just won't feature them at all. We'll just pick that up on Monday. That's a problem for Monday's writers.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think that's most likely it. I was thinking about the Roman Reigns stuff because initially I was like, oh, you don't want to do that. But then I thought, is there a world where Retribution could be a new Shield? I'm not saying a new Shield in terms of popularity and significance to the industry, but for Roman's character, he's turned heel. Maybe he wants to use his influence to create a kind of family again. And this is sort of a Shield, a new Shield in his new heel image. I could get behind that. I could kind of see that working. As I'm saying it out loud, I think it's awful.
Yeah, but dude, like, the Shield were cool. And if there's one word you wouldn't use about Retribution thus far, it's cool. And I'm someone who knows what's not cool.
Yeah.
And Retribution are not cool.
You're telling me. Right. So Kayla Braxton is outside Roman Reigns' room. This sort of set up a night-long narrative about, will Roman Reigns sign the contract to be part of the match that WWE announced on Monday? I feel like they're leaving it to the last minute. This is Ollie Davis's GCSE revision before he became Mr. Davis and learned to plan at least hours in advance.
Yeah, this was like, and he didn't sign that contract until nearly the end of the match. So, like, WWE contracts work in very mysterious ways.
They're obsessed with contract signing segments, yet they don't sign the contracts. Ridiculous. So yeah, that Heyman sort of played off Kayla Braxton. I think they've got a good sort of chemistry. Well, Paul Heyman can have chemistry with pretty much everyone, to be honest. We get Keith. We didn't talk about this in our Keith Lee discussion at the start of the show. Keith Lee's in the locker room. He's warming up, and in walks JBL. JBL was on the pre-show panel. He's hanging around, and he offers Keith hedge fund investment opportunities at $1 million a pop. And Keith, first of all, this is like, what to what purpose is this? It's lame. It's lazy writing to find a way to get JBL in clunkily. What they were trying to accomplish was, Randy Orton's really good, you're not going to beat him, with the idea that when Keith Lee beats him, it's more impressive. What they managed to achieve, though, is tell me Keith Lee doesn't make any money. He behaves awkwardly around people like JBL who aren't cool themselves, and it was all a bit of a wet fart, I thought.
Yeah, I didn't think much of this segment. Like you, I thought the point of it was to be, hey, Randy Orton's one of the greatest of all time. If you were to build a WWE superstar from the ground up, it would be Randy Orton. He's a future Hall of Famer. You can't beat him because you're a rookie. And then Keith Lee beats him to prove the legend's wrong. That actually, as a segment, would have worked fine. But no, they talked about hedge funds instead. Because character.
Because Vince McMahon is in his own little bubble, and that's what he thinks about. I never like hearing or having values placed on how much money wrestlers have. I think it worked in AEW with the $5,000 or whatever suit it was with Jericho. He's quite good at making monetary values work. But WWE always get it wrong. You know, they either go too far where they fine someone $500,000 or too low when it's $500 fines. So it never matches up. And when Keith says, I don't have that kind of money to JBL about this investment opportunity, like, of course he doesn't. It's $1 million. But make it scripting him to say that. It just exposes a weakness.
But they've done, they do this all the time, don't they? This is with Big Show. Remember when Big Show was like, he had to join the Authority or something because he couldn't afford to pay his rent or some nonsense? It's very, very weird. I don't know why they do it.
Well, you'd never get Rock, Stone Cold, the Attitude Era stars saying stuff like this. And Keith Lee, he has so much potential promo-wise and charisma-wise to recapture that kind of character.
Yeah, and the reason why I think it works for Jericho is because Jericho is out of his mind and is just, his jacket probably didn't cost $5,000, but he just said that it did, or said, however much it was. He just said that it did because he's out of his mind.
Not like one of these bad boys. Set you back a cool 10K. Sheamus versus Big E was next. Sheamus, unfortunately, not wearing his little hat.
Wait, don't be She still embodies all the awful stereotypes she did before.
But she's got a new hat.
That's Sheamus.
That's very good. Yeah, so, well, he didn't come out with his little pork pie hat. But I really enjoyed this match. I thought, even though Big E got worked over a lot, I bought into the back and forth big man meaty clash style of it all.
Yeah. For me, like, I didn't think there was much of an issue with this match. It just, because this came just before the Matt Riddle Corbin match, and those two matches were the exact same match. So in hindsight, I've looked back on this match kind of dourly than I had done when I was actually watching the match, because it was, two big lads slapping some meat together. But really, when you break it down, it was Sheamus working over Big E for 90% of the match. Big E makes a comeback, hits some moves, and wins. And then you jump forward to the Corbin Riddle match. Corbin works over Riddle for 90% of the match, and then Riddle hits some moves and wins. It was the WWE template match. It's what Vince did with Hogan, so he's just done that for the last 35 years. That's how you get a big guy over. When you do it two matches back to back, it really exposes that format, and it just makes the matches feel quite boring and sluggish.
Yeah, to an extent, I'd say the same about Keith Lee and Randy Orton. You just didn't notice it because it was condensed into 6 minutes as opposed to 10 or 15. It was a lot of Randy headlocks. That was a lot of Randy's heat that he got there. When I think what's more engaging as a modern style of wrestling is a bit more back and forth, particularly when they're two big guys as impressive as Sheamus and Big E. There was a great Sheamus spot where he just ran through Big E with a big boot while Big E's on the floor, and the camera's looking at Big E, and just this stiff elbow right down onto Big E's throat. I like the physicality of it. Big E reversed a bro kick into a powerbomb, big ending for the win.
Yeah, they're continuing that push of Big E. Surely we've got to be building to a Big E Roman feud down the line here over the title. Like, if we're really driving home this Big E push, I could totally see them doing that. That's my other big takeaway from Payback was it was a push for Big E. It was a push for Riddle. It was a push for Keith Lee. Roman is this new heel champion. It kind of felt like, there's a lot of cool momentum you can ride here going up. Like, I think this Big E push is something that can really work for SmackDown and make it really interesting to watch. And that's being particularly helped by the amazing promos he's cutting on Talking Smack.
Yeah.
So good.
I think the Intercontinental title first. I would like to see the Miz and him IC title feud. I think that's a more natural progression. But yeah, definitely down the line, Big E versus heel Roman would be awesome. I'd really look forward to that, because you can kind of play the whole Usos into that. Maybe the Usos come back, they're heels. You've got that Usos family with Reigns versus the New Day. Ooh, there's some context there. So after this, we got the sort of WWE Backstage interviewer clone machine created a new one because Renee Young's left. We got Elise Ashton, who has apparently been with the company since January. She made her pay-per-view Backstage interviewing debut here, where she introduced the bodacious Barefoot Bro, going to every length possible to make Matt Riddle seem uncool. And then they kind of managed it, because she said King Corbin earlier today called you a failure in the ring, like he's going to prove you're a failure in the ring, and you're already a failure at home, which is quite transparently a reference to the affair that Matt Riddle admitted he had last month in July, which was off the back of the person he cheated on his wife with, accusing him of sexual assault in June. And it's just like, I'm all for weaving in real life with storylines. I love when wrestling promotions do that. But to use something like this, which is, highly charged, and off the back of criticism against the company that they haven't taken accusations against Velveteen Dream or Austin Theory seriously, because WWE claim their investigations. A lot of the people who initially accused Dream, they claim they were never reached out to by those investigations. To have that floating around in the background, and then to turn an unrelated but same ballpark thing into storyline fodder, like, it didn't even create any more heat.
Well, that's it for me. Like this was it's distasteful anyway, but this wasn't the story of the match going in. Like they've been telling a completely different story on SmackDown leading into this match. Like the story's been sort of like, this bounty that Corbin's got and Shorty G trying to get this bounty. So for all of a sudden, 30 seconds before your match starts being like, and here's the new story of the match now. And then none of that plays into the actual match itself. It raises the question like, well, what was the point? What was the point of even attempting to blur the lines of reality and fiction if you're not even going to try and capitalize on it for anything? So what was the point?
I don't know. Heyman's on SmackDown. I know he's not got any sort of booking powers, but I felt his fingerprints on this show. I very much felt like the main event was a Paul Heyman designed match. Lots of finishes, lots of big schlocky spots. Matt Riddle feels like a Paul Heyman guy. I think that's even been brought up in interviews before. That they were obviously grooming him for a match against Brock Lesnar. I imagine Heyman was working with Riddle on that. This to me seems like a sort of Heyman thing that they could have done. I don't know. Or maybe it's WWE. I don't know. I'm just speculating there, of course. But this turned into a match. And for me, look, King Corbin is great. I do get a kick out of him. He's got a fantastic moveset. He gets heat like few other people in the company do, and arguably in modern wrestling. But he has the same freaking kind of match all the time. And as you already said, Luke, it was the same kind of match that we just saw with Sheamus and Big E. I struggled to maintain my interest here. And I didn't feel like it built Riddle off the back of it.
I am so glad I had Sean on my stream during this match, because at least because if I'd have been doing this part of the stream on my own, I'd have really struggled to find anything to say about it. But thankfully, Sean was there to add some charisma, and he made the point during my stream that Corbin, as you say, he's got his moves and he just does those moves. He has got one match and he does that one match very, very well, and he gets them into the head and arm choke. And Sean was like, are you telling me that Matt Riddle, MMA fighter Matt Riddle, can't work out how to get out of this hold? It's just I don't buy it. Absolutely don't buy it. And this match didn't need to be the Baron Corbin match. It would have been so much more effective if Riddle had just gone in there. And the Cassius Ohno match that he had at TakeOver. Gone in there, knee to the face, bro to sleep, floating bro, and picks up the win. Because Corbin doesn't lose anything off that, because Corbin's going into this with all of this cocky heel arrogance that he is much better than Matt Riddle is. So Matt Riddle catches him off guard and pins him really quickly. And you can play that off into the story, particularly because this feud must continue. Corbin just attacks him after the match. Why is Corbin so mad that Riddle just beat him in a regular match? Surely embarrassing Corbin and to set up his attack later on would have made this match way more effective, the attack way more effective, and built some heat into the feud itself.
Yeah, I totally agree. So at this point, I've written here, WrestleTalk was losing to the Wrestle Luke live stream, 2,000 viewers to 2,500, but we had all the key demos.
Well, sometimes it's not all about the demos, mates.
Sasha Banks and Bayley versus Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax legit had my favorite match of the night.
Who would have thought going into this match that A, probably match of the night, B, easily the finish of the night, and C, might be my new favorite team? Nia Jax's celebration here was something else. And it's the most character she's ever had on the main roster.
Yeah, I think she's playing up a shtick where she thinks she's better friends with Shayna than they are because they won the championship. So, let's just go through this match. It was a really well-told story of Banks and Bayley being incredibly effective together at the start because, of course, Nia and Shayna were struggling to coexist. Nia took a spin outside early. But then the tables kind of turned, and there's this wonderful moment when Shayna is in the ring and she's looking at Nia, and Shayna's been working over Banks for a bit, I think. And Nia looks at her and verbally says out loud, "We can win this."
Yeah.
And Shayna just goes, and from there, it's just such a wonderful way to turn around the whole character dynamic. From there, they start to go at, they start to get on top. But then Banks and Bayley have this really, really close near fall. Banks hit a frog splash on Nia, and Shayna's running in to break it up, but Bayley catches her with a belly to Bayley. And you're like, oh my God, that's the finish, right? Nia kicks out. And there is this, it's like my favorite image from the entire pay-per-view. Sasha Banks just prone on her stomach on the mat, like with her head in her hands, and she looks up and Bayley's looking right back at her. And that's the moment kind of where they lose the match, because they're like, we're struggling here. Like, that's the doubt of this whole role model act. And yeah, extrapolates out to Shayna killing them both. I'll let you describe the finish. It was amazing.
This finish was Baszler locks in the Kirifuna clutch onto Banks. Not to be content with that, she also gets a leg vine in on Bayley. Not content with that, because then like Banks is starting to get out of it. So she grabs Bayley's arm and chokes out Banks with Bayley's own arm. It was like, whichever way around it was, but it was absolutely incredible. It made Baszler look so like, this is the submission magician that they've been saying that she is, as opposed to she comes in and she bites people's necks. She's a vampire now. This is
I forgot that was a thing.
This is what Baszler is, right? Like, this is how you book Shayna Baszler. It totally worked. It was a great finish to the match. Easy the best finish on the show. Probably one of the best finishes they've had this year. Made Baszler look wicked. Nia Jax doing some great character work after that was also brilliant. Banks and Bayley then selling it. Like, there's so many ways you can look at this. Like, they kind of beat each other. Banks and Bayley, that is. Did Bayley tap out because when she's got up one belt anyway, so does really losing one of the other belts hurt her? Does her credibility? But now Banks has got no belts. She went from being Banks 2 belts 2 weeks ago to being Banks no belts now. There's so much on this. The only sadness of this is that this is the last of the golden role models on all 3 shows.
Well, we've been spoiled, to be honest, these last few months. I've loved having Banks and Bayley across Raw and SmackDown, feuding with Asuka, feuding with Kairi Sane, now Shayna Baszler. But look, this match was so good. I'm really quite into the Shayna Nia dynamic. And they had a backstage segment earlier on before this match where they were trying to train and they got in each other's way and they're both like, oh, I hate you. No, I hate you. And it was terrible. Like, it was really bad acting. It was just, get off my screen. This is awful. But put them in the ring and let them tell that story through wrestling. It suckered me in. And now I'm really looking forward to seeing the next thing they do.
Well, the other key to it is, for me, that Nia Jax going out there and acting the way that she was, like the screaming celebration that she had, and like, it didn't feel like it was scripted. It didn't feel like a writer sat down and was like, make a reference to giant haystacks or haystacks Calhoun or whatever, call her the Addams Family, all this sorts of nonsense. It wasn't terrible WWE writing. This was a wrestler going out there and adding something to their character that felt spontaneous and it felt organic and it felt legit. And I think that's why it's worked. I can tell you now, when we get a backstage segment between these two on Raw tonight, it's going to kill this feud dead, because they'll just have awful dialogue back and forth again.
Yeah. So after that, we got the Keith Lee Randy Orton match. We already covered that. Great stuff from Keith Lee. Then we got Seth Rollins and Buddy versus the Mysterios. This was the match I wanted at SummerSlam. I kept saying after SummerSlam, look, I get that people liked it. A lot of people liked it. Dave Meltzer called it one of the best laid out matches of the whole card last Sunday. Apparently, Jamie Noble is the guy, the producer who works with Rollins to sort of put his matches together like that. For me, it wasn't this was Dominic's debut, like in-ring debut. I wanted more. I just wanted him to go at Seth for 5 or 10 minutes, loads of smoke and mirrors. That's it. What we got was a kind of performance art piece of Dominic just getting beaten up over and over again. Dominic's mum walks out. Ray can't do anything. I never got into it. This match, however, it is just the Mysterios working a very classic WWE style tag match with the Monday Night Messiah faction, in that they get to run wild a bit. They get to have the revenge. But then it's just build the heat on him. Hope spot. Nope, cut him off. Hope spot. Cut him off. And then you get that cathartic tag at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. I know a lot of people really liked the SummerSlam match. I thought it was pretty good. Kevin Clifton on Gorilla Position said that he cried watching that match. He got so emotional during it. It didn't have that same connection for me. I certainly didn't mind it though, and I liked that they used the Seth Dominic match to build to this tag match. Kind of wish they hadn't also done it on Raw, because it sort of raised the question of like, well, why weren't Retribution out for this match then? If they were so mad that they attacked them 6 days ago, why aren't they doing the same thing now? But that aside, God, this match was fun. Really, really fun, and you're absolutely nailed it on the head there. That cathartic hot tag at the end where they run wild and they get the pin, and they pinned Buddy Murphy. And wow, I mean, Seth didn't look too pleased about it. Really didn't look too pleased. You could almost say that I think that he almost had this face about him.
Okay. Oh, for podcast listeners, Luke just flashed up a picture of me and Laurie having all of the fun, of the fun in our live reactions. That's just you. But look, you look like you're having more fun, but you're putting on fun. So the thing you're missing out there is when the finish was fantastic. This was another really good finish for a match. Seth Rollins runs into the corner to do that sort of pout buckle bomb high kick spot from Buddy on the apron, but Rey Mysterio reverses it. Seth is driven into Buddy's kick. That was the bit that sort of unraveled their whole act and led to the loss, really. So yeah, those two things teasing a bit of dissension. I'm surprised Seth hasn't been ridden off TV yet. Of course, he's got his pregnant wife, or fiance rather, Becky Lynch, at home. I don't know how much longer he wants to be working during a pandemic in that situation. So maybe they're building to riding Seth out soonish.
Maybe Seth doesn't believe in it. Maybe he's one of those people.
Could be. But yes, really fun stuff from Dominic. Dominic is great, really. He's, especially in this when he's protected by a lot of other people.
Yeah. So, and actually, shout out to Dominic. That's 3 matches he's had in WWE now. The SummerSlam match, the match on Raw, he's not missed a beat. He's doing really, really well. He's not slipped up. He's not made a tit of himself. Fair play to the lad. Absolutely fair play to the lad.
And not just in ring, he's done months and months of angles beforehand. And I've always enjoyed him in those little angles that he does. So, well, yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting to have a young person doing well on Raw. But the main event was Roman Reigns, not really there, versus The Fiend versus Braun Strowman. The Fiend makes his entrance. He gets attacked at the end of his entrance just before the lights come up by Braun Strowman, who's a big bald train. And they have a Paul Heyman match. Lots of finishers. They get some kind of mallet came out.
I can't believe there's some kind of mallet made a return here. I haven't seen that since Hell in a Cell days and it was literally some kind of mallet.
Or hammer, he did say. Some kind of mallet or hammer. And yeah, they brawl up to the stage. Braun tackles Fiend off the stage. They both go through a technical area. Alexa Bliss is shown watching from backstage. She's twiddling her hair, looking more and more like Harley Quinn. That's surely got to be building to some kind of relationship with either Braun or the Fiend. And they get into the ring, they hit a superplex, the ring breaks, and that's when Roman Reigns turns up like it's Royal Rumble 2017 or whenever it was, when he was injured for the whole match and he was taken to the back and then came out at the end with Paul Heyman. He signs the contract, and this just got over to me, like what a heel he's being presented as. He runs into the ring. What an opportunistic thing to do as a cowardly heel, really, but a badass heel, a smart heel, one might say. And he's got the chair, and he still uses the chair, but Fiend goes back at him. Yeah. So he kicks Fiend in the dick, and the Fiend rolls out. He spears Strowman. He wins. Roman Reigns is your new Blue Universal Champion.
I was one of those people that did have my doubts as to whether or not Roman was actually a heel, because I looked at the attack that he did at SummerSlam, and I was like, that's just badass Roman. It's the badass Roman that we've all been asking for. Absolutely. I think that's what they're doing here. I looked at the angle on SmackDown as more of a face turn for Paul Heyman than I did a heel turn for Roman Reigns. Here, though, holy heckins, 100% was this man a heel. Not only did he come out late in the match, he tried to get he did multiple pin attempts on the Fiend and argued with the referee. He did the Steve Austin beat down of the chair angle that they did at WrestleMania X7 with The Rock. He was totally kicked one of them in the dick. Unless you're Seth Rollins, in which case that's a babyface move. He was completely a heel here, which is really exciting. It sucks that he's still got that same awful music. Like, change that
I
up.
like the music. I was saying on the live reactions, I am so ingrained to boo when I hear that music. You wouldn't want to change it.
Yeah, but maybe you're right. But I had this about. I had this when Bayley first turned heel and she was still using her old entrance music. I'm like, I think if you're going to change the character, you need to change the music. And now they have. And I think that's helped enhance her character a little bit more.
But she thought she was a babyface still.
Exactly.
I think that makes sense.
But I don't think Roman Reigns thinks that he's a babyface. He knows that he's a heel here.
He's got a banging tune. He's too badass. He doesn't need to change his music. He's got the top on right.
And to be honest, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. At least he wasn't wearing the flak jacket. And he went out there, acted like a total heel, and he stole the title from The Fiend. So that report that came out last week that Roman is pegged to be the #1 heel on SmackDown with Strowman just behind him and The Fiend as the top babyface star. It's completely it. Like, a few people have asked, like, why bother giving The Fiend the title if he's only going to have it for 7 days? Just leave it to Roman. For this reason. Because Roman stole the title from The Fiend. You're supposed to feel sympathy for The Fiend now and want him to get the title back from that dastardly bastard that stole the title from him.
Yeah, it's not ideal that The Fiend's lost, but let's be honest. The whole first year of The Fiend has not been ideal. We've been asking for a Roman Reigns heel turn for so long, like 5 years, half a decade. It's happened, and they're doing a bloody good job with it. The Paul Heyman stuff, the presentation of his character, the teeth, Luke. I'm overjoyed. I feel bad about The Fiend, but I'm optimistic because Paul Heyman seems to be involved in some way, and that just gives it a bit more hope than usual. Overall, I thought this was a 4 out of 5 show. I gave it same ranking as SummerSlam. I think, in the grand scheme of things, it's probably more like a 3 out of 5, just because it's more like I'm thankful that they have given us clean finishes relatively and not loads of stupid angles. But yeah, I'm pleasantly surprised.
I like this from Dean. So The Fiend is some kind of face now?
Some kind of face.
I didn't like the main event. I'll be honest with you. I thought because there's too many logic holes in there of just like, so Roman could just sign the contract halfway through a match? Because if that's the case, why doesn't everyone do that? Like, why doesn't everyone use that loophole? So I didn't like the way that the match was laid out. I did say before it started, this match is nowhere near going 10 minutes. But at the end of the day, I'm kind of excited to see what they do with Roman next. So, yeah, I'm kind of into it. Overall, though, I thought it was a perfectly solid show. I would have given it a 3 out of 5 because I thought that the undercard was, broadly fine. But there were some really golden moments on this. I thought the Shayna Nia stuff was great. Keith Lee pinning Randy Orton is spectacular. I think, Big E picking up a win, Riddle picking up a win is really good signs. I think the implosion of Banks and Bayley is really good. And Roman is your new champion to try and build this Fiend babyface with his Harley Quinn. Laurie did an excellent explained video on the Fiend where he has taken a lot of inspiration from the Joker. And I think then to have his own Harley Quinn in Alexa Bliss, who has done Harley Quinn cosplay in wrestling before, could create a really cool dynamic for SmackDown. So yeah, I'm excited for the future. So, but yeah, for me, solid 3 out of 5 show.
Good stuff. If anyone has any more super chats, get them in now. Ding, ding, ding. It's 4 o'clock. We've gone over the hour mark, so we're going to have to rush through all these super chats to get through them.
Times, mate.
DB, but thank you everyone so much, of course, for your money. DBZ Psychologist. Keith Lee call-up reminds me of Kevin Owens' win over Cena in his call-up. That was probably the last great NXT call-up to this extent.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it might be. I think the Kevin Owens one is absolutely the best call-up we've had recently.
Alan Monson, thank you, Mr. Davis, for bringing back Luke. It's only temporary. Like you always say, you know what the fans want. I do. Also, is Keith Lee's next feud against only Drew, or will Orton also still be involved?
It's like I said on Monday, I think it's a triple threat feud.
Hopefully, I think that's definitely the best way to keep Keith Lee in that main event scene. And Shu Kamal, hello, Mr. Davis, and the other Wrestle Luke one. Do you think Keith Lee would be champion by next WrestleMania, as Vince is high on him? Since the pandemic, despite how the booking has been, most of the pay-per-views have been good.
Yeah, and do you know why that is, Anshu Kamal? They've been 2 hours, 2.5 hours. It's sweetness. It's a sweet time for a wrestling show. Not 4, not 5, not 6 hours. 2.5. Oh, it's tasty.
I think Keith Lee will be. I don't think he'll get a championship at WrestleMania. No, but soonish after that, maybe late next year. Andrew Buckley, has a new era started from SummerSlam? Roman returns. Roman teams up with Heyman, and Keith Lee wins clean. Welcome to your never see it coming era. Well, it's the Thunderdome. They've definitely had all these plans in place that they've held off on until they could make the production more enticing to viewers.
Absolutely, yeah. So rather than welcome to the you'll never see it coming era, it's the Thunderdome era. We've had the pandemic PC era. Now we're in the Thunderdome time.
Marcus Roman, I was rather upset with the ring implosion. Made not sense to me compared to other spots in the past. Especially referee Charles looked ridiculous trying to fall out of the ring. What's your opinion?
They like doing them with big, beefy men, and they're big, beefy men. It's like it makes no sense when you have 30 men doing battle royal spots and the ring doesn't break. I was like, yeah, but these lads are big. These are big, beefy. It's not going to break with Zack Ryder's in the ring, is it? But you had a Braun Strowman in there, and it's going to break.
I think ring break spots, you always need to have a crowd there. It just that's what it's there for. It's for the crowd in person to freak out. I just didn't get that same thing. So I agree with you, Marcus. It felt a bit schlocky for schlock's sake. Fabio Geronimo, shouldn't WWE push their two best workers, Sasha and Bayley, to the moon? Red as Cameron Grimes, with their match being postponed until next year as the main event of WrestleMania. Hashtag Team Luke.
I thank you very much. Hashtag Team Luke. Give me a yes, please. I don't think that WWE see them as a main event program for WrestleMania. I don't think they see them as that big time.
It was going to be a WrestleMania program this year, but yeah, not a main event. No,
not main events, no.
Look, the story, as great as they are, it's time now for this to start happening. So I've not got a problem with it. Dances with AK-47s. Also, OMG Baszler looked like a badass vampiric submissionist. That double tap made her look like the best women's wrestler in years, in my opinion. Amazing.
Thought she looked great. Amazing stuff.
T5R Reaper, what's your thoughts on Alexa Bliss possibly being Sister Abigail?
Well, I mean, it's about time they did it, I guess. I'm less into her being Sister Abigail, more her being the Harley Quinn to the Fiend's Joker.
Yeah, just make her Sister Bliss or something. Sister Abigail should be something else entirely. Marjo32, fans, stop trying to make Sister Abigail a thing.
They can't, Marjo. They can't. Wrestling fans have got two booking stories. Split up the New Day, and one of them is someone is Sister Abigail.
Now Bayley Stings happened, yeah. Mr. Kajili, the next step for Alexa is to get a bat, and she destroys Nikki, even damaging her legs with the bat. Some kind of bat. Mr. Kajili again. Not all big people from NXT get overlooked at. Alexa Bliss, definitely not the biggest, but one, if not the most successful call-ups. What should she do now? Well, yeah, it's different for women. They need to be blonde.
Yeah, and I think for women as well, when they brought up all the women from NXT, and WWE's women's roster was so sparse that they had to bring them up and start pushing some of them. Otherwise, they wouldn't have had a division at all. But yes, I think if you're a guy, you've got to be big. So, but yeah, for Alexa Bliss teaming up with the Fiend, they were very much setting that up on this show and have been on SmackDown as well. Would you like me to take over?
Yes, go ahead, yeah.
WWE Miscellaneous and Shu said, will Baszler and Nia be across all three brands now? I mean, they can, but I can see them being sort of Raw exclusive. I think the belt's being back to being sort of a Raw exclusive thing. Because
that's where all the teams are.
Yeah, well, exactly. Like Baszler and Nia don't really have a need to go over to SmackDown at this point. Kevin says, unrelated to anything, have you seen Sami Zayn use the name Not Renee on Talking Smack? Fortunately, he used it for Kayla and not Sarah. I did see that, yeah.
Well, I think that Sami Zayn's a witty guy. I'm a witty guy. We can independently come up with witty things to say, which are often the same.
Rakadine123 said, are you guys saying that I should start watching WWE again? Start giving them my money again? You guys have been giving it high ratings like you do AEW.
They're relative ratings. If this was an AEW show, it'd be a 2 out of 5, honestly. So yes, it's comparatively good to WWE's last couple of years. If that sounds like the sort of product you want to watch, give it a go.
Go for it. Michael Riley, I wouldn't have minded that Matt Riddle promo as much if Riddle had gone out and beat Corbin quickly and be serious until he wins. Yeah, absolutely.
I still would have minded it, for the record.
Quinton Whitfield, quick question. Do you think the Undisputed Era should go to Raw or SmackDown?
Selfishly Raw, because we review that.
Absolutely. Dancers with AK-47s. Jericho's character is like DC, grittier and more realistic, which is why the money stuff works with him. WWE is more Marvel. I'm not sure you could say that Jericho's character is gritty and realistic at this moment. He's having a Mimosa Mayhem match at All Out.
Yeah, and WWE is the more Marvel family-friendly type. They just ripped out a guy's eyeball.
Maddie B. Wrestling. Seth is so good with his expressions. Loved it.
Yeah.
WrestleManiac. How does this sound? Seth keeps showing disappointment in Buddy, recruits 2 new people. We get a divide tease, Seth and Buddy, until it climaxes with Murphy brutalizing Seth to write him off so you can make Buddy a top heel.
I think I always like the idea of Buddy rising up against Seth. I thought that was the story they were going to tell with these eye pop-out spots. So yeah, I mean that's one way to do it.
That's how you could write Seth off, to be honest, is with Buddy doing the eye spot to him. And Seth has to go take time off. Doesn't come back for a year. Jordan Trapedo. Hey, Sir Luke Owen and Mr. Davis. What happened with Retribution? Are they afraid of pay-per-views or something? Also, why did they book Braun to be such a dummy in the ring?
Yeah, and to take all the losses. I was trying to say pins and losses at the same time.
He takes all the pisses.
Takes all the pisses out of himself. And what happened with Retribution? We just think they don't have a plan and they throw them in when they feel like it.
Yeah. And Kamal, draft is coming up. What are your predictions of superstars being shaken up? Here's my prediction. Roman to Raw, Drew to SmackDown.
Ooh.
They want to raise those Raw ratings, man. How better to do that than with Roman Reigns?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, but they want SmackDown ratings to be best. Undisputed Era to Raw.
Either that or AJ moves back to Raw because Heyman's now on SmackDown and he left Raw to try and avoid working with Paul Heyman. So this is one of my favorites new usernames. Big Rook 42316, Luke Owen fan. I see you typing your comments. A physical championship for Luke's name to be on, because I will be the inaugural Jam That champion.
Well, yeah, the plan is, of course, to get a physical championship, but I tell you one thing, Luke's name ain't going to be in it.
We'll see. We'll see it all out. Can I get a yes, please? Get rowdy up in the chats. Peter Mullins, Mr. Davis for champion, always been Team Davis for live.
Thank you, Mullins. You're one of the good ones. Part of the Ollie Authority.
Kevin Conn, come back to us, Ollie. You and Luke have always been the best tag team jamps.
He's dead to me, Kevin.
Colosopia, support Mr. Davis. Don't forget who lost your jacket. I think Mr. Davis needs more support. Screw that trader, Luke, Adam, and Laurie. Just want to point out, the reason that Ollie lost his first jacket is because he didn't listen to me. If he'd have listened to me, we would have drawn the SummerSlam predictions 2 years ago.
But you did not convince me.
No, because you listened to Laurie instead, and they were both wrong.
Well, listening to Laurie has never once backfired on me. I can't think of one storyline thing that's happened badly with that.
So trustworthy. Peter Mullins, Luke Fort champion, always been Luke World Order. Jam for... Get rowdy.
Hey, he had just said the same thing about me.
Yeah, and you said that he's one of the good ones. You're absolutely right. He is one of the good ones. Peter Mullins again. Oops, my macro for separate channels doesn't work when you're on the same show. I hadn't planned for this. Smoke bomb. Hashtag FTJ.
I appreciate the tomfoolery, Mullins. But you're an asshole.
Jobber JJ. Mr. Davis, future Jam That Champion. His son is the Jobber Jompion. Davis family rules wrestling YouTube. FTF brothers have no chance in hell. Hey, I'm not part of Team FTF. Bodega Vega says Owens 613 says I just beat you properly. Can I get a yes, please? Give me a yes, please.
Lame.
Peter Mullins again. The All Authority will crush the Luke Serper. Hashtag not rowdy. Pick a side. Pick a lane, Peter.
You didn't pronounce it right.
Sorry, did I not?
The All Authority. Because it rolls off the tongue.
You got to lick your hand afterwards, which is
you don't lick the hand. You just
very advisable.
You just do the symbol of it rolling off your tongue. All Authority.
It's fine. You're telling people to lick their hands. It's okay, mates. Ray Benshop, glad to see you back on the main channel, Luke. I literally laughed out loud at Jam That Championship.
What a stupid, horrible thing to say, Ray. That's our prestigious inaugural championship. Come on, show some respect.
Hayden Griffin, love this channel. Thanks for your hard work. It would be fun if Adam booked Gallows and Anderson's WWE run. Hashtag Jam That Jam. We'll pass it on.
Yeah.
Miguel Ortiz, Jam That Jam sign guy here got banned from the Thunderdome because he was representing Jam That Jam. Payback was a pretty good show. Questioning where did they go from here? Question, Mr. Davis, you plan on getting a Notes 20?
No, I try and get one new phone every 4 years because I think to get any more is consumerism gone wild.
Oh yeah, I have got
I preach that advice
very old
to everyone.
iPhone here. I've got a very old iPhone here, and I'm going to keep on using it until it dies.
Yeah.
Marjo, win the tag team, then feud. Brilliant booking, JTJ. So obviously you talked about Nia and Shayna there. And lastly, Jake Weeks. Payback is the best show of the lockdown era. Mo.
Oh, I think I enjoyed SummerSlam more. I'd say.
And lastly, from Hector Troy, Ollie Davis is the man. Team Davis will be champ. Come on, guys, get rowdy.
Jamp, it's pronounced. But thank you, Hector. That's all we've got time for today. Thanks for joining us for the Payback review. Go over to WrestleTalk. Oh, we've got another one. Harriet Mangagel just said, really enjoyed Payback last night. Let's get rowdy. Backing Luke for the championship. Hashtag Jam That Jam. You're dead to me, Harriet. Oh, and
thanks, Harriet.
And Shu Kamal also, did you notice the next pay-per-view date confusion? Yes, they said it was the 20th, but it's actually the 27th. Right.
But they also said on the show it was the 27th. So maybe just back-to-back pay-per-views is the new way forward.
Oh, my God. No. But that's all we've got time for today. Thank you, everyone, ever so much for joining us here. Stop with those goddamn get rowdies and the yes pleases. Me and Luke will be here for the rest of the week because that's part of the agreement. Luke will stay here until he loses All Out 2 predictions, where he will be gone forever from WrestleTalk and I will be the inaugural champion. Go and watch my Payback review that went up earlier today. We've had another one. Don Trey Lawrence, Roman is the best, Roman #1. And go over to Parts of Unknown because we've got another Calling Spots episode up later today. I've been Mr. Davis. This son of a bitch has been Lukewarm Luco, and I hate him. And that was wrestling.
Goodbye. Bye all. Goodbye.